or good morning, depending on what time zone you're in today. Number one, thank you for joining us and spending a little bit of your day. As we kind of formally launch something that we're pretty proud of, the SUDAS Custom Gravity Structure Library for Civil 3D. So, as the name implies, this is going to be very kind of Iowa-centric, or at least Iowa design standard centric. However, if by chance you're joining us from somewhere else and you don't use Iowa parts, that's absolutely fine. I certainly invite you to stay, take a peek at what we've done, because this very thing could certainly be replicated if you've got a specific need. So with that, kind of a little bit about me. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Hedrick, and I co-manage the civil technical team here at IMAGINiT. I've been doing this a really long time. It's 20 years, just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm starting to feel old, but being a professional geek. But prior to that, I did work for a private surveying firm for about 5 years or so, and then I spent some time at a municipality, the city of Portsmouth, which is adjacent to Virginia Beach, Virginia, which is where I'm located, for about 3.5 years in public works and engineering and surveying and GIS. But my role at IMAGINiT is really to co-manage the team, but to work with clients, to help them implement design technology. And specifically for a very long time, that's been Civil 3D. But prior to that, obviously when desktop, and I started when S8 was still around. So that being said, one of the things that I used to hear an awful lot about when I traveled, all over the place, but specifically in the Nebraska, Iowa area. We used to hear a lot about how the parts that, Autodesk provided, out of the box in Civil 3D were okay, but they weren't quite good enough. And if we kind of take a stroll, down memory lane of Civil 3D for just a minute, one of the things, pipe networks, Autodesk kind of built out Civil 3D in pieces, and there was a point in time where it seemed like every year, when the product would release, there was, some brand new feature. So, the best that I can remember, pipe networks got added in 2007, 2008-ish. I say ish because quite honestly, I didn't go look it up and try to trace it that far back. But yeah, I don't know, that just kind of feels about right. And, again, they came with a good, basic library of parts, square, rectangular, conical, eccentric, tiered, etc. And that's, really to this day what a lot of people use. I have had the benefit of traveling all over the U.S. and Canada as well. And, for the most part, that's what, customers use. However, there are areas that have special needs. The structures need to look a certain way, or they need to act a certain way that just isn't possible with some of those out of the box parts, right? So Autodesk did ship a mechanism to kind of modify and create your own versions of those parts, which was called Part Builder, and that probably is all I need to say about Part Builder, especially for any of you that have tried to utilize it. If you have, it's not quite the most intuitive or easiest tool in the world to use, nor is it the easiest tool to find documentation about. But for really fast forward all the way through right around the 2016-17 timeframe, Autodesk released a product, on Autodesk Labs that was called Project Chameleon, and Chameleon with a K, that kind of introduce this radical new way to build parts. What if we could use a product that's made for modeling pieces and parts and widgets, i.e. Autodesk Inventor, and what if we could use that to create our stormwater structures and utilize those structures not only inside of Civil 3D, but also inside of InfraWorks. So that is the tool. Project Chameleon grew up and became infrastructure parts editor, but that is kind of the approach that we've taken. So during my travels in Nebraska, as well as Iowa, everybody says, Joe, it would just be nice if you guys would build the SUDAS parts library. And for a couple of clients, we did. And way back when we did it with Part Builder. And that was, one of those things we did the best that we could. But there were inherent just restrictions inside of Part Builder that we couldn't overcome. So, kind of fast forward, beginning last year, I did teach an Autodesk University class on this topic. And this was really, kind of what forced, myself and then, my team by default into, wow, we could just build this content for clients and offer it. So that's what we've done. We started with Iowa, with SUDAS, mainly because I knew that was kind of a statewide standard. Lots of times there's areas that have their little regional standards, and that's fine. That's pretty common. That's exactly the way it is where I live. But I knew, kind of, and if you design in Iowa, 99 out of 100 times, it seems like, people are using the SUDAS standard. So what we did was we built 27 structures. It is, essentially the entire catalog. There technically are more structures in in our library, just because we've we had to make accommodations for our boxes on the left side and the right side and things like that. But it is, if you go through the design manual, we basically built all the parts that could be built. We built them as close to the standard details as we could. We did build them based off of the standard details. However, we also, built it as much as necessary, or modeled, the necessary parts. So, we don't get to the level of, modeling handholds inside of the structures or anything like that, but all of the exterior features and the shapes are modeled. So the benefit to this is, right, we're placing pieces that, more accurately reflect the design and what's being, constructed, right? I know, and I've worked with a lot of people and a lot of design firms in Iowa, and I'll have to say, everybody's gotten really creative on how to work around the out-of-the-box parts. Lots of times that means introducing, blocks that go over top of the structures so that they're viewed completely differently in plan view. It doesn't really help the profile view that much, but I'll have to say that people are very, very, wow, I lost the word I was thinking for, but people have done a really great job working around the, what comes out of the box. So we're going to accurately, or more accurately, represent what's being built. This also makes labeling structures a whole lot easier, right? It's not a eccentric two-tier, structure that we're calling, an SW301, right? Depending on how the label styles are constructed, we can just say, you know what, it's an SW301, et cetera. Probably the next two bullet items are the biggest, and probably one of the biggest benefits of this library is, number one, we support multiple connection points. The way that any part built in Part Builder works is the insertion point of that structure is also the connection points for all of the pipes. Well, that's usually fine if it's around manhole. However, there are lots of times when, what about that SW501 curb inlet, where the insertion point needs to be on the back of the curb. However, we still want the pipes to connect to the center of the structure. And, kind of that right there is the biggest benefit of the new system of building parts, right, is being able to separate where the pipes connect from where the structure gets inserted, right? We can also have multiple connection points, on a particular face. So if you've got a very large structure that you've got more than one pipe, going to connect into it, this library will support having multiple pipes connect into the same wall, if you will. One of the more creative things that we heard a lot about was, and this happened right around 2018, 2019 timeframe, Civil 3D release timeframe. And, people would call and they'd say, Autodesk broke pipes. And it took me a while to kind of figure that out and what they meant. And especially as we started doing research for this library, really what we figured out was, a lot of times clients were, once they would draw the structure or draw their pipe run in using the out-of-the-box parts, they would physically pick on that pipe and kind of move it, pull it back just a little bit, move it off to the side just a little bit, trying to get, more accurate connection locations and or more accurate pipe lengths, right? So when Autodesk basically made some changes to support, some of this feature and functionality, that kind of broke that workaround. So, using these parts, there's really no need for having to do that. And finally, it makes for much easier quantity takeoffs. If you're trying to count the structures, it'll just tell you, hey, there's 10 SW501s as opposed to 10 rectangular inlet, blah 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 blah. So that being said, like I mentioned before, these things are not based on Part Builder. We went through from scratch, pulled every detail, and built the parts using Autodesk Inventor as well as Infrastructure Parts Modeler. Right? This is a little bit easier to do than Part Builder, but it certainly has its own nuances as well. So, without further ado, let's take a peek at the library and a little bit about what how they work, etc. So here we are inside of Civil 3D, and the first thing that I'll kind of draw attention to is once these parts install, it really shows up just like any other structure catalog would. So really from a user perspective, it doesn't take that much extra, or it doesn't take any different to use this library as it would any of the out-of-the-box libraries, right? This can be defaulted to just as you typically would. But if we take a look at the library itself, and what I'll do is we'll go through kind of the beginnings of creating a part list so we can see all of the structures. And right, you will see that we have built literally here's the 301s, the 302s, the 303s, kind of all the way down. And I'm just going to click through some of these. Right, there's sizing. There's multiple sizes for a lot of these. Right, so here's some of the greats. Here's one. Here's actually this 506 is where I was mentioning. Whether the box is on the right or the box is on the left. There's multiple grate types, so we've accommodated for those. and then some of the larger inlets as well. Right, so all of these you would use, literally just like you would any other pipe library. So I've already got a smaller part list created that we will use, and what I wanted to do is kind of highlight a couple of things. And to do that, let me just start another pipe run. Use the SUDAS library. Let's do proposed ground here, and this particular one only has a handful of structures in it. I didn't load this one up per se, but yeah, what I thought I would do and start with is, this is literally how Civil 3D has worked forever. As I click, basically we're connecting to the center point of the structure, right? However, and if I were to pick a maybe one of these curb inlets, right? This is, you can see that those pipes, they're really not, they're essentially connecting at the insertion point and not, along the walls of the structure, which is where we would want them to. But really, this is the big change is these parts have been created with what are technically called connection points. And that's what this row of icons is for. For a lot of times and a lot of people, this always just stays grayed out. And you really have to have, parts that support this before you can do anything with it. But if we were to say, the closest connection point, now you can see as I move around, that pipe is no longer connecting, to the insertion point of the structure. It's connecting to the walls of the structure, right? I can still, wherever I pick, I get the my structure inserts at that location. However, the pipes adjust accordingly, right? And we've done this for really all of them. You can see as I move through here, that pipe jump, right? So that's kind of what really the meat of what this is truly all about, being able to do that. If we were to take a look at some of these other ones, here's a run that I did. These are truly three-dimensional parts. So we have, like I said, we modeled these things as about as close as we should anyway. But there's the 501 structure, and then this I just picked a 506 structure just to kind of show the differences in that. All right, profile view. Really no problems either. They're going to show up, in the profile views. Again, based on your styles, depending on how you show the structures. I'm just showing the outer part boundary, but we could turn it on to show some of the more intricate pieces of that part. One of my favorite features that we were able to work through with this is, we really started thinking about where are some of the real time consuming tasks. And I know, for a lot of my friends that are certainly still in the industry, still doing this, laying out structures along curb inlets, and getting everything rotated just right, and that is to make sure that it lines up in the right place, the elevations are all right. That's a huge kind of time commitment sometimes. But just wanted to show, and we'll touch on one more here. We'll lock it to the corridor surface this time. But as we lay out this these structures, this is the back of curb feature line. So as I place that, the very first one, it's going to come in its default location, but what we can do from at that point is as we click, and you can see how the the structure inserts at the base of the back or the back of the curb. However, the structure almost rotates itself the way that it should. And as I close this off, one of the really nice things about these is, we do have rotation grips set at the insertion point. So it becomes very easy just to click on these guys and align these structures. Wow, shouldn't have done so many of them, but I think this is the last one. Right. And then if we were to kind of look at all of that, you'll see that these things kind of drop exactly into place where they should. Oops. Right along that curb line. So simple example, simple corridor. I completely get that, but I know that that is from people that I've talked to, it's a really nice benefit that they're able to get out of these parts, and we've tried to do that for all of the ones that make sense. Finally, I mentioned the quantity takeoff, right? Again, just by I haven't, I did when I set up my part list initially. I went through and associated some quantity pay item information to it. But literally, you do that one time, you throw it in your template, you're done. You no longer have to do that. And it's as simple as going to analyze and saying takeoff. And we can get quantities of the structures that are in use, right? So I know I didn't place 14 501s, but there's a couple of more up here. But it truly is that simple to get the quantities as well. All right, so that's probably where I'm going to stop with the with that demo. And if we go back to the presentation, there we go. Yeah. So a couple of things about how we deliver these. So number one, this is what we're calling a package service offering. Meaning, really what that means is we're going to be involved with it. All right. It's not just hey, put in your credit card number, download it from a website and go. We provide these on an annual subscription basis that covers your entire organization. Right. We want to make sure everybody has access to the files that they need. Right. For that very reason, because everybody's organizations are different in size, I can't answer definitively right now how much do they cost. So I would say, contact your, IMAGINiT account manager, and they will certainly be able to work with you to get specific pricing to you. If you don't know who your IMAGINiT account manager is, or if you don't have an IMAGINiT account manager, or if you work with somebody else, that's fine. My information is coming up on the next slide. Feel free to reach out to me, and I will be more than happy to get in touch with the appropriate people for you. But the way that this is working is we have the parts available for the 2020 and 2021 versions. We will handle the maintenance on the parts. Yeah, so if something's just not working the way that it should, or really what have you, if there's something wrong with it, we're going to be there to take care of that. We have had several early adopters of this, and thanks to them for kind of working through some of it with us. But yeah, we'll take care of the updates. We'll also take care of the updates as new versions of Civil 3D are released. So, right now, like I said, right now we've got 2020, 2021. We've, full plans to support future releases of Civil 3D. What you do get is, the pricing does include assistance in getting them going in your environment. And I say that just because that kind of covers a couple of things. Number one, it covers helping you get them installed. We do provide an installer. It's pretty easy. You just double click the MSI file and it will put, the hundreds of files that make this up into all of the correct intricate little locations of your Civil 3D instance. So, we'll take care of that. And we also help you get it, really integrated into your template, right? So like I said before, a lot of people have gotten very creative with, how they show the out of the box parts. I've seen some really intricate blocks, that users are inserting, over top and show in plan view. If that's you, that's fine. We'll be more than happy to help and give you strategies on how we can still use that just with these parts. So, the look and feel, really doesn't change. The aesthetic of the plan doesn't change. However, what you're going through to create that aesthetic, does change and get easier for you. So with that being said, I would say certainly, contact your account, the IMAGINiT account rep for pricing, or here's my information. There's my email address. That is by far the easiest way to get a hold of me.